Alright, so on our next step here, we're going to be working on creating a base for our model that has been cleaned up all around the edges. And so right off the bat, I'm actually going to be showing you an example of an error that happened here. And this error comes about because if you remember in the other videos, we were working on smoothing all of these borders, right? And we went through a whole process of getting these borders nice and smooth. Well, occasionally, and I'm going to show you another step here that we need to do to make these even better borders, we can end up with little hairpin turns around here that will actually kind of go in, they'll go all the way around and they'll come back. Okay, and what happens when we start pouring this model is they create little kind of caves, little voids inside of here that will be issues, right, as we move forward. And this one actually has one of those on here. I don't know exactly where it is, but little things like this, right, if it goes all the way through, little spots like this. And so those are all areas that we need to clean up. So let's go ahead and show you how to pour a base, and I'll show you why this model is actually an error and how we can fix that in a future video. So right off the bat, we're going to Command All, select this entire image, and we're going to work on pouring the base. So we're going to come up here to Edit and Extrude. And because this is a maxillary model, right, I want to pour the model up, okay, which is in the Y direction up. So as we see, offset over here is going to be positive, and I like to do about 20 just because of how I do it. Ideally, you know, you could do 5, you could do 10, and you may not have to actually go in and trim anything later, but I like to do it about 20. You can play with all of these if you want, but again, we're moving this in the Y-axis. So click on that and you can see it goes all the way up, and this is actually an outline here, right? It matches. So the offset I actually want to be flat because bases when we pour them up are flat. Once we have everything we want, we're going to click Accept, and obviously you see the stripes that we have here. Essentially the software is telling us that the model is inside out, right? It's just a quirk of working with meshes and working with software. So it's done the trick, it's gone over here, so we're going to do Command A again. Select this entire image, and we're going to go up to Edit again, and we're going to Flip Normals. Flip Normals is going to turn this back to the way we want it, you know, flip it inside out. We have two face groups here again, right? I like the gray, so I'll do it one more time. Command All to select everything. We'll go up to Modify, Clear Face Groups, and what you'll see is we'll have a final kind of poured model. At this stage, I mean, really, you could print this thing, okay? But again, remember this has an error on it. These little kind of tabs that you see sticking off here, that's not really an error. Usually things will be just fine with that. It's not an issue. But you can see how tall the base is, right? Do I really need to pour a model that's this tall? No. And so this is where I'm going to come in, and I'll come over here to Edit, and I'll go to a plane cut, right? Because I want to trim this. And you can see that we have a new kind of thing going on here that we haven't seen before. And down here on the bottom, the area that I actually want to keep is see-through, right? And that's because it's cutting this off and it's keeping the top. Well, I don't want that, so I'm going to click this little blue arrow you can see floating in the background. Click on that, and then it switches. So I'm keeping what I want to keep. The top is going to go away. And as I look inside, you can see again those red lines telling me that this is not a closed model. And over here, we have these other arrows that's going to allow me to tell where I want this thing to be cut, right? How tall do I want my base? You could cut it all the way up here, or you can cut it all the way down here. Again, thinking about what you're trying to do and where you want to be, we could probably cut it way down at this level and be just fine because we want to save resin, okay? All the way up here, this is usually the settings that we want, and I'll click Accept. The problem with this and the error that we have is that I don't have a solid base here anymore, right? This is all hollow inside. This is not something that will print because it's not gray all the way around. So the question becomes, why did that happen, right? And just like I was saying before, very likely what's going on is we have some kind of a hairpin turn somewhere along this border that we just had that's just kind of messing us up, right? And it's not great, and you wouldn't know it would happen until you get to this stage really, and you're like, wait a second, I should be able to print here, and I can't. So let's go back. all the way from the beginning and try to fix what's going on here. So the quickest way for me to do that is I'm going to do it real quick. I'm going to exit out of everything and open this model back up. I don't want to save it all the way through. So we'll do Meshmixer again. And you can see I've changed my labels over here for this error example. We're going to import, again, the error example. And again, this is all just good to know how to do as well. This is something that can happen, right? We go through all this work so it doesn't happen, but I'm glad it happened because I'm trying to show you what can happen. All right, so we're back to our model that we had originally kind of smoothed all the way around. Let's go ahead and make it even better so that we don't end up with that same error. So I'm going to go to Sculpt, up here to Brushes, Robust Smooth. It's pretty good, and you can see how big my border is. Again, we can change this over here by our size and our strength. I usually like to have it a little bit higher because it's going to smooth things out a little bit better. So come over here, and we can also hit brackets. Remember, I'm going to hit a bracket, 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 get it all the way down to an area where I'm going to be focusing just on the border. And you see as I click through here, see how that kind of smooths out all the way around? It's even smoother than we had before. And so this is just another way to do it. I actually a lot of times will just do this. If you remember in our previous videos, you can go and make things, you know, more complex all the way through if you want. There's a lot of different ways to do the same stuff. And so what I'm going to do is just go all the way around this model, smoothing everything out, because I know this model had an error somewhere, some reason. We're going to just keep on going all the way through here. And again, you can play with the strength of this how you want it, but this is getting rid of any of those little potentially hairpin turns that caused our model to be hollow, right? Or not be closed is a better term for it. Because sometimes we do make our models hollow, that way we don't waste as much resin, which I will show you again here in just a little while. And again, I'm just selecting all the way through with this brush, trying to smooth everything I can around this border. If you get up on here, it's not a big deal, right? Again, it matters about the strength that you have. But I'll show you as well, right? This could work if you had some kind of an error along here that was not a big deal for what you were doing. And in the previous video I showed you this, right? If I click here again, see how that's going away? And these are ways to kind of modify your model to make sure it's good. Don't know if you can hear in the background, my dogs are saying that's a good thing to do as well. All the way through. Okay, and this can be done very, very quickly. I'm just talking as I go, trying to make it really smooth so that I can do that. And I'm pretty certain this will fix our error that we were having, and really you'll be done and printing here in no time at all the way through. And again, you know, this is all to a level that you can modify, right? If you want perfection, you can go around this a lot of the times all the way through. This is a very smooth border. If I was using this for some kind of a example that I was going to give to a patient, I really like to smooth the borders because that's what it's going to show me. So, alright, everything's nice and smooth. Let's go ahead and back out. We're going to do Command A and go through our extruding the border one more time. And so extrude, we just did all of this, right? But it was an example of what was going wrong. So I'm going to come up here to 20 again, and sometimes you see nothing happens when I hit this, right? So if I click somewhere else or I click in another field, it will then apply this. Usually I'll just hit Tab and it kind of runs me through. We'll come back to our Y-axis because we're moving in the positive direction, flat, all the way through. And again, we've done all this, so it's just good to, you know, this is how you do things. So you'll get very quick at this. You won't have any type of issues. Again, your computer will kind of be your limiting factor on a lot of these steps. Command All so that we can get all of this selected again. We're going to go up, flip our normals, because again, this is inside out. It's just what happens when you actually pour the lower one. You usually don't have to do the flip normals because it looks just like this. Again, just how the software works. So let's get rid of these face groups. Usually not something you have to do. I just prefer to do it because it can change things at times. And so now we have a single thing. And again, this little kind of shelf here, it's not an issue. Usually that will print, but I don't need to print all of this, right? Because it's just not something that I need to do. And so edit, plane cut, and again, we've seen all of this. We're just getting to a point where bottom is off, right? So we flip it, and we're going to move this where we need to move it, right? And we can go at any point along this path. Computer's working a little bit here. And so I'm going to show you what I'm looking at inside, and it should be flat, right? That's why we went through that whole thing. And now, boom, see the difference? You remember last time we were able to see the pink stripes on the inside telling us that this wasn't closed? Again, it's just something that happens, right? It's some of the frustrations of the software, but there we are, right? You have your completed finished base. And so I really don't need that much base, so let's bring it down a little bit here. Get it to where I need it. Perfect. And we will click accept. All right, accept one more time. And it will do what we need it to do. And basically at this point, we're going to have a perfectly finished model. And I clicked too much because I'm getting impatient with my computer being slow there. And it's purple because of the face group again. Command A will give us that. We'll go to modify, clear face group, and boom, we have a finished, completed model that's just like if you did it in a lab, right? With stone, it's completely poured up, you're ready to go. This is a solid piece that now you can send to your printer, right? And I'll show you how we can do that after this. And we're ready to print if this is what you want to do. So where do we go? We go over here to export, right? I'm inside of my case, and usually what I will do here is I want to name this as example, right? This is our upper model, and instead of calling it raw like I did before, and I actually skipped a step, I like to also save a step where it's at the cleaned section. So I'll have a raw file for the upper. I'll also have a cleaned file for the upper, and then once I have this done, I'll have an upper that is ready to be printed, which I call based. Okay, and we can save this into our file, and we want to save it as a .stl file, but there's two that we have here, from the ASCII format, which is just usually a bigger format that we don't need, and the binary format, right? Binary is what we do. Save it, and you can then take that file, put it into your printer software, which we will do here in a little bit, and be completely done and have something you can print. Okay, so we had this completed model that we were working on, right? But if this entire thing prints, it's all resin, right? You have it all the way through here, and if you're doing a suck down or you're doing something like that to create some kind of a night guard or anything like that, you just don't need this much resin in between. Again, resin can be pretty cheap, but there's just no reason to go in and waste it if you don't need to waste it, right? And so let's go ahead and do what we call a hollow model, right? And so we're going to go to edit, going to hollow, and the computer is going to think about what we're doing here. And if you're able to look inside, you can move it around and you can actually see kind of the layers in here. It's easy to see in the teeth, right? This is all solid, and then this is the hollowed out section of this model. Up here we have the offset distance, which is usually 2 millimeters is just fine. I'll usually go between 2 and 3 millimeters. That's usually far strong enough, far thick enough that you can do what you want to do. But I could do 2.5, you know, best of both worlds. And anytime you change something in here, you need to update your hollow, right? And so if you watch real closely here, it may have actually happened. We might have missed it, but it'll change our entire kind of what we're looking at. Click accept. And now we have a hollowed model, but you can't see it. So let's go in and we'll do another plane cut here. See where we want to be, right? We want to keep the lower portion of this. We'll grab this, we'll come up until just below our 2.5 millimeters, right? And you can see this green base. And everything in here is actually hollowed out, kind of like a cup inside of it. Perfect, except. And now you have a hollowed model where all of this stuff inside, you know, you don't need it, but it's 2.5 millimeters thick all the way around. And so for me, I'm going to do Command A, face groups, clear them, we're good to go. And now let's go back and we'll export this one. Again, I like to do these just so that I have them when I need them. We'll do upper, based, hollow, right? And usually what I'll do is I'll do these all as hollow, so my bases are usually hollow, right? You just need to create what you want. So at the end of the day, I will have an upper raw, and I'll have a lower raw. I'll have an upper based, have a lower based, and then I'll have the one that I didn't show you that I usually save is an upper and lower cleaned, right? The borders are all clean and ready to go. And so we save that, and the next step is to put it into our printer software and get this done. And don't forget, you can do all of this with the lower model as well. The only difference is the direction that you pour it up and do it all. So we're done. Let's go ahead and on to the next step.